You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm joined by Mr. Baseball, Derek Vandygriff, to talk all about Ole Miss college baseball, and we're going to get his opinion on the top 5 Ole Miss quarterbacks as well. How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Man, I am worn out tired. I told you that before we got on the air. It's like this is my 4th video today. I have SEC After Dark a little bit later on. Wednesdays are always a difficult day for me.
Yeah. That's usually when we do our recordings too. Now we don't do 4 in a day, so you're definitely ahead of me on that. But yeah, we're actually going to record Dids in the Dugout on Thursday this week with the midweek game on Wednesday. We like wait until the midweek game's over with so we can watch it before we start talking about the upcoming series. So that'll be a day late for anybody looking for it as well. But yeah, I definitely understand you on Wednesdays.
Well, we'll go ahead and get into it. You're not going to record this until Thursday. This is going to air on Wednesday night, I do believe. Ole Miss has a math problem, and I contend it's not a very good one. But what is Ole Miss's path to the NCAAs?
Yeah, it really hasn't changed a whole lot, right? We talked about getting to that number 13 last week here with going into that Auburn series. That would have been a lot easier had we had not screwed up that Sunday game and ended up sweeping them. Ends up not being the case though. We end up dropping that one, only taking 2 from Auburn. So you look up. I'm not going to count a sweep against anybody. So now you're looking at coming home and having to take 2 against a really good Texas A&M team. Number 1 RPI team in the entire country. I think they're ranked number 2 in the polls this week, but by all accounts, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the entire country across the board. Just a really solid team. And then you turn around, you got to go down to Baton Rouge where we own the LSU Tigers and take 2 from them, right? I know I've said it on your show before. We've won 5 out of 6 down there. If we don't get 2 this weekend, then we're going to have to do it like we did a couple years ago and go down there and try to find a sweep somehow. So, yeah, the math isn't ideal. It's one of those things where you look back on the season and, you think of that Auburn game or one of those Alabama games, take one of those or get that Georgia game that got away from us, right? There's so many you can look at that we were in that if you just had 1 or even 2 of them for sure, you're sitting pretty right now and you're feeling good about yourself. But you can't go back and replay those games. Those games ended the way they ended. And now you got to look ahead. And so now you've got to take 2 at home against Texas A&M. You got to go on the road. You got to take 2 against LSU. Midweeks are pretty important too, right? They're early in the year. We talk about how midweeks don't matter just a whole lot, but when you're on the bubble like Ole Miss is, and on the outside looking in particular, you don't want to lose these midweek games. We're recording this before we play Murray State on a Wednesday night. Murray State's a good RPI team. We talk about it a lot that Ole Miss's RPI and metrics are in a really, really good spot, but that's still a win you want to get. And then you go down to Southern Miss next weekend for a midweek. Be really nice to take those 2 along with finding 4 wins over the next 2 weekends, and then going to Hoover and winning 1, maybe 2 games to make you feel a little bit better about yourself. But that's the path. It's a difficult one. But in baseball, anything can happen, So we're not out of it yet. So we're going to keep talking about it and giving you guys the scenarios as they come about until they are out of it.
Yeah, you're always against the math until the math is completely gone. As long as there's math that can get you anywhere you want to be, you're actively alive. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Now, Texas A&M, the number 1 RPI team, is on deck for Ole Miss baseball this weekend. Tell me what I need to know about A&M besides the fact that they're really, really freaking good.
Yeah, I mean, this was just a giant in the making. A lot of Ole Miss fans like making fun of Ross Bjork a lot, and look, I'm right there with you. But hit an absolute home run when he went and hired Jim Schlossnagle away from TCU to be the A&M baseball coach. He was always going to do a great job there, and now in year 3, I think it is in College Station, hasn't taken him long to make them one of the best teams in the entire country. He's an incredible coach. He's won everywhere he's gone, and with the resources A&M has in particular, it wasn't going to take him very long to build them into a winner. And that's exactly what he's done, and he's used those resources quite well. He goes to the transfer portal and gets Brady Montgomery out of Stanford, a kid that just absolutely mashes the ball. A Mississippi kid, by the way, but he is coming back home this weekend, but he's just going to be in the other dugout, and that definitely sucks. We could absolutely use him in that lineup in Oxford right now. But Braden's having a heck of a year, though. He's hitting 342 with the 1296 OPS, 24 home runs, and he has 76 RBIs this year. I mean, that is an absolutely insane number when you've only played 49 games, right? But he's not the only one. This is a lineup top to bottom that can not only hit but hit it out of the yard. Jace Lavalette, I believe his nickname is Lord Tubbington, if I have that correctly, and he absolutely mashes the ball too. He's got a 1303 OPS, 26 home runs, and 67 RBIs. Just a lineup that can absolutely kill you if you make the smallest mistake. So the Rebel pitchers are really going to have to be on their game, and it's going to have to start, of course, with Riley Maddox on Friday, the sinker baller, the ground ball pitcher. He's going to really have to be on his game, keep that ball down, and not give them anything that they can get up into the air and hit out of the ballpark, which is going to be incredibly difficult, but it doesn't change back. That's the reality. That's what you're going to have to do. That's what's ahead of you. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm ready to get it going a little bit here.
Yeah, it's a situation where since you need probably 2 games in the series, that Friday night series is kind of
Really
a must
important.
win. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very important. And that's one we've really struggled with. If you think about the series we have won so far this year, now I think about it, I have to go back and look at it. We might have we didn't back in South Carolina. We've back ended every other series we've won besides South Carolina, though. So yeah, it's really difficult to win a series in the SEC when you don't take the Friday night game. That's something Ole Miss really struggled with, and really, really need to get that turned around this weekend.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, Derek Vandygriff is going to give me his top 5 Ole Miss quarterbacks in history. So stick around for that. But first, guys, I need to tell you this huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboards every single day, keeping my eye on the score, putting my heart in it. I'm super pumped to announce I'm finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on the classic Monopoly, and you can play it anywhere, anytime. Explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Vegas to Camelot to the freaking moon, all the while raking in a huge fortune. You can charge rent on your iconic properties just like Monopoly, and you can also charge your friends rent on those properties as well. So go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can finally see who is a Monopoly tycoon and who is a wannabe. So go get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you all a shot to bring home a win of your own. Like I said, on the FanDuel app right now, you can bet on Ole Miss and their win total. Their current over-under is at 9.5. 9.5 is the over-under, and it's minus 144 to get that. Or you could just bet on whether or not you think Ole Miss is going to win the SEC title, which is currently at plus 650, which is like 6.5 to 1. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every single day, to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so Derek Vandygriff is on the hot seat. We're going to ask them the top 5 quarterbacks in Ole Miss history. We're going to go from 5 to 1. Should be some pretty interesting stuff. I actually have a little bit of hope of hearing Russ Showers in this one. So we'll see exactly how that goes. So Derek Vandygriff, number 5.
Yeah, so I actually gave this a lot of thought. When you talk about the top 5 quarterbacks in Ole Miss history, we've had some really, really good ones throughout the years. I decided on mine. I was just going to go with ones that I have seen, right? So I'm not going to have Archie in this one, even though I know he is absolutely one of the top 5 quarterbacks to ever play at Ole Miss. But I didn't get to see him play, so I'm going with people that I've seen with my own eyes. So at number 5, I've got maybe my favorite, and that is Bo Wallace. I loved him when he played. I've loved him since he left. He was such a big part of the program when he came in with Hugh Freeze when we desperately needed a quarterback. Just tough as nails, a leader, and before the injury was absolutely dynamic. I'll never forget the scramble he had down in Baton Rouge against LSU where somehow or another he made every single LSU defensive back and linebacker look like they were stuck in quicksand as he took it about 60 yards for a touchdown there.
To be fair, he looked like he was stuck in quicksand too.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying. Like it's not like he was looking like Mike Wallace out there burning down the field. But yeah, I love Bo. I love his toughness, his competitiveness. So I've got Bo at number 5. That's always going to be my guy.
Number 4.
All right, number 4, we're going to go with a Matt Luke Lane Kiffin guy here, Matt Corral, right? A guy that put up huge numbers during his time here in Oxford. I will admit he got some points from me his freshman year in the Egg Bowl when he got that little scuffle going there in the end zone, taking up for his teammates. Again, I love the competitiveness of a quarterback when I see something like that. And the guy just really had a hold of this offense. You know, he had guys like Elijah Moore and guys like that on the outside to make plays for him. But he made plenty of plays himself. And again, tough as nails, putting his shoulder down, trying to run over people to get that extra yard. It was just a real joy to watch Matt play here at Ole Miss, and wishing him the best at the USFL right now. Is that where he's at, Stephen?
UFL. UFL.
UFL. Yeah. So actually called his first game. He looked pretty good down there too. So heck of a player. Loved watching him in Oxford. So I'm gonna slide Matt in there at number 4. He was dynamic.
Number 3.
All right. These are subject to change from here on. Okay. 1 through 3 are now subject to change. As of right now, I'm putting Jackson Dart at number 3. What he's been able to do since he's come onto campus, the development he has made, right, since his first year at Ole Miss and transferring from USC. He was really mistake prone that first year. You could tell really frustrated Kiffin with some of the throws he would make. Really toned that down last year in his second year, expecting huge things from him next year. He's got a chance, not only from a statistical standpoint, but from a standpoint of where he can rise this program up to, right? He has a chance to take it to heights that it hasn't been since the John Vaught years back in the 50s and 60s. So right now, Jackson Dart's at 3. Again, that gritty, tough-nosed competitor. That play against Georgia Tech last year when he's going down the sideline and he has every opportunity to just step out of bounds after, a 20-yard run. Like, you're fine, Jackson, get out of there. No, he's coming back in. He's putting his shoulder down. He's getting his nose dirty a little bit. And then again in the Egg Bowl as well, picking up that first down and, flexing on him a little bit down there after he ran over a linebacker. So that's kind of stuff I love to see. I cringe when I see it because I don't want to see him get hurt. But right now, Jackson's at 3 with room to move up to either number 2 or number 1, depending how this season goes.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Jackson Dart, a lot of people don't realize this. He has more Tim Tebow in him than a lot of people are willing to admit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Number 2.
All right. Number 2, probably from a pure talent standpoint, with his arm, probably the most talented quarterback I've seen come through Ole Miss. I think Chad Kelly has the best arm I've ever seen step on the field in Oxford, Mississippi. The dude could throw it an absolute mile. He could throw it on the rope. He was accurate. He was again tough. He wasn't scared to take off running to get the extra yards and do whatever he had to pick up that first down, get another yard or two to get yourself in a little bit better position. I love Chad Kelly while he was here. I still love Chad Kelly. I know he's had his trouble since he has left Oxford, but went to Canada, won the MVP up there with them, and but as far as his time at Ole Miss, though, I love Chad. Loved watching him play. And just from a pure arm talent standpoint, I think it's probably the most talented in Ole Miss history. So give me Chad at number 2.
All right. So number 1.
Number 1's the GOAT, right? It's the baby brother. It's Eli. And Eli obviously had a great arm himself, and he wasn't doing all the things that I talk about I love in a quarterback. He's not taking off running and lowering the shoulder against a linebacker. Football was a completely different sport back then than from when these guys played, though, right? It was a lot more pro style. You had Charles Stackhouse on that team that had a legitimate role, like a big role on those teams, because you actually played a fullback back in those days. So Eli had such great control over the team, over the offense, knew exactly what he was going to do on every single play, probably before the ball was ever snapped. Mentally, he was so sharp. He had such a good understanding of not only what he needed to do as the quarterback, offense needed to do what everybody on the offense was going to do, but also what the defense was going to do to try to counter him, to try to slow him down. Always go back to that play against Alabama. His sophomore year when he hits towards Sanford down the sideline to set up that Joe Gunn touchdown run to win the game there within the last couple minutes. Just a really heady play. He didn't get stuck on one receiver. He knew he had his fullback slipping out of the backfield down the sideline, saw the defense. Nobody was out there, slung it out there to him. And he goes streaking down the field, set up that game-winning touchdown. That's the heady plays that Eli got done for you. And also the arm talent was incredible as well, right? I mean, he could throw anything on an absolute rope, incredibly accurate, and then goes on to the NFL and has a Hall of Fame career on top of that with a couple Super Bowls. So I think Eli is going to be hard to unseat. But again, I think Jackson does have a chance this year, depending on what kind of year he has and what kind of year Ole Miss has. Just from a program standpoint, Jackson has a chance to elevate above Chad and Eli, in my opinion. But going into this year, right now at this very moment, I've got to give the nod to Eli as the Ole Miss quarterback GOAT.
Yeah, I think the floor for Jackson Dart to get to GOAT status, get to statue status, is Ole Miss hosting a playoff game.
Absolutely.
At that point right there, Jackson Dart elevates to number 1. Anything below that, there's going to be argument, there's going to be discussions and things like that. But if Ole Miss hosts a playoff game, Jackson Dart's the GOAT.
Yeah, and he's got a chance that both Eli and I guess it was Chad Kelly, if I'm not mistaken. But had a chance to get Ole Miss. They have one game to win to get us to Atlanta to play for an SEC championship too, right? And neither one of them were able to get it done. Unfortunately, I was in the stadium for the Jonathan Nichols missed field goal there in 2003 with Eli, and then again with the 4th and 25. Yeah, the 2 field goals. You're right. But then the 4th and 25 against Arkansas as well, and you win that, you go on, and then you just wipe the floor with Florida. They were a shell of themselves by the time they got to the SEC championship game that year. So, but Jackson's got a shot to get Ole Miss there, get us to Atlanta, try to win an SEC championship, and again, the most important thing is the playoffs. Host a playoff game, win a playoff game, and look, just go win a national championship. That's not out of the realm of possibility for this Ole Miss team. They're incredibly talented. They've got the coach, the players. You had a really good tweet here on Wednesday, Stephen. Every time one of those lists comes up about position groups, Ole Miss is on every single one of them. There's a reason for that. We've gone out. and we've brought in an incredible amount of talent on both sides of the ball in almost every single room in that building. It's going to be a ton of fun to watch this team play. I can't wait to get it started.
Yeah. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Derek Vandygriff, Mr. Baseball, thank you so much, buddy. And we'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. Hi, Toddy.
Hotty toddy.